Today is Monday, November 24th, and it is one of the darkest, heaviest mornings Sean Diddy Combs has ever faced. The sun hasn't even risen over Manhattan, the skyline is still drowned in cold gray light, and yet inside the federal system, the chaos has already begun. Lights are flickering on inside SDNY long before staff are scheduled to arrive. Supervisors are rushing through metal doors with files pressed to their chests. And at Fort Dix, the officers on the overnight shift look shaken like they've seen something they were never trained to handle. Because last night, Sunday, November 23rd, at exactly 11:58 p.m., a video surfaced online that should never have existed. Not a rumor, not a misunderstanding, not a recycled clip. A real, raw, unfiltered, viral video tied directly to sealed federal evidence the public was never meant to see and prosecutors never expected to lose control of. And now that it's out, everything around Diddy is collapsing. Before we go deeper into this breaking situation, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss critical updates like this, because what's happening this morning is not normal, and the next few hours might rewrite Diddy's entire future. Now let's get back to the story, because this morning didn't come out of nowhere. It began quietly, the kind of quiet that makes officers uneasy, a night where the prison felt wrong, not loud, not tense, just wrong. Sunday, November 23rd, 11:58 p.m., a tiny anonymous account posted a 17-second video. Grainy, low light, shadows moving in a hallway. A voice saying a sentence investigators had been trying to confirm for over a year. At first, nobody noticed, but within 6 minutes, federal monitoring systems flagged the clip. Within 9 minutes, analysts inside the U.S. Attorney's Office were staring at their screens, their eyebrows frozen in disbelief. Within 30 minutes, the video had more activity than anything Diddy-related in the last 2 weeks combined. And by 1:01 a.m., this was no longer a social media post. It was a federal emergency. Inside Fort Dix, the atmosphere shifted instantly. Officers on duty exchanged looks of panic. Supervisors came down the hallway faster than usual. Inmates whispered at their doors, sensing something had exploded overnight. What scared staff wasn't the internet reaction, it was how fast SDNY responded. At 1:37 a.m., Judge Arun Subramanian was woken up inside his Manhattan residence. The message he received was short. Viral video confirmed. Content matches sealed evidence. Immediate review requested. Judges do not get contacted at 1:37 a.m. unless something catastrophic has happened. He read the report once, then again. Then he issued the order that changed Diddy's fate. Bring him in, first light, no delays. Those 3 lines triggered a chain reaction across the federal system. By 2:10 a.m., a high-risk transport unit was mobilized. By 2:23 a.m., Fort Dix received an emergency instruction to prepare inmate Combs. By 3:02 a.m., SDNY was operating like it was the middle of the afternoon, phone lines buzzing, staff pouring in early, marshals tightening security perimeters. And all of this because of a single viral video. Between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., the clip went nuclear, over 600,000 views on TikTok. Twitter, X trending, Charger, Diddy video leak. Instagram flooded with edits and analysis. YouTube commentary channels going live in the middle of the night. Celebrities quietly messaging journalists, is this real? But what the public didn't know was this. Federal agents had already confirmed the video's authenticity before most viewers even woke up. And what scared SDNY wasn't what the video showed, it was what the video proved. This wasn't speculation. This wasn't edited. This wasn't out of context. This was the missing piece. The moment prosecutors had been trying to connect for months. The detail witnesses hinted at but couldn't fully prove. And once the video went public, the system had 2 choices. Ignore it and be accused of protecting a celebrity inmate. Act immediately and unleash the harshest response possible. They chose option 2. By the time the emergency order reached the overnight team at Fort Dix, the officers walking toward Diddy's cell felt something no guard likes to feel, the sense that everything is about to break. One officer later wrote in his report, "It felt like the walls were holding their breath." And it was true. The block was dead quiet. No shouts, no banging on doors, no night noise, just silence. a silence so heavy it felt like even the inmates knew something irreversible was coming. At 4:09 a.m., three marshals entered the block. Not officers, not supervisors, marshals. That only happens when the stakes are catastrophic. They didn't speak. They didn't hesitate. They walked straight to one door, Diddy's door. One marshal turned to the officer beside him and said, "He needs to be ready. We leave at first light." And just like that, Diddy's world shifted. Whatever he thought his sentence was yesterday, whatever future he thought he still had, it wasn't real anymore. Because after that viral video, the federal system wasn't debating discipline. They were preparing for something far harsher. And as the clock approached 5 a.m. on this cold Monday, November 24th, one reality became clear. Sean Combs would not be returning to that cell again. Not today, not this week, maybe not ever. The clock struck 5:11 a.m. when the federal transport van pulled away from Fort Dix. But the real storm wasn't happening on the road. It was happening inside SDNY, where prosecutors, analysts, and federal staff crowded into a sealed evidence room, staring at the same 17-second viral video that had detonated the entire system overnight. No one spoke at first. They simply watched, then watched again, then again. Every playback revealing one more detail they had missed the first time. A shadow moving in the background, a hand gesture that matched a sworn testimony, a voice in the distance that synced perfectly with an earlier audio file the FBI could never authenticate. The kind of evidence prosecutors dream of, the kind of evidence defense teams fear, the kind of evidence that destroys cases, careers, and futures all at once. And this morning, that evidence belonged to Sean Diddy Combs. When the analysts enhanced the audio, the room went still. The small crackle of distortion faded, replaced by a clearer frequency. A voice, sharp and unmistakable. A sentence that matched word for word what a protected witness had told the court months earlier. A sentence Diddy's lawyers had dismissed as impossible to prove. Now it was proven, not through testimony, not through speculation, through video, through sound, through the one thing the justice system treats as absolute when authenticated, direct evidence. The lead prosecutor pressed pause at the exact second Diddy's silhouette moved across the frame. He leaned forward, studying the timestamp. November 7th, 10:42 p.m., the date of the first violation. The night everything had supposedly started spiraling. But now the prosecutors had something different, something darker. Something that showed November 7th wasn't the first step in a downward path. It was part of a longer chain, a chain that matched patterns from the trial. Patterns from witness statements, patterns investigators suspected for months but could never confirm, until today. One federal agent whispered, "This is catastrophic for him." Another shook his head. Catastrophic isn't the word. This is fatal. Because the video didn't just create doubt. It destroyed all defense. It connected dots no one was supposed to see, and as the analysts slowed the frame to quarter speed, the room felt heavier, the silence deeper, like everyone in it knew they were watching the moment Diddy's entire legal universe collapsed. Within minutes, the forensic team had issued their internal report. The video was real, untampered, high probability chain of custody match, and worst of all, it contradicted statements Diddy gave during his sentencing hearings. That alone for a federal judge is unforgivable. Lying indirectly to the court by omission or contradiction is enough to trigger maximum punishment. When combined with a viral leak, sealed evidence breach, and a matching witness statement, it becomes something far more dangerous, a grounds for irreversible sentencing. While SDNY processed the footage, news outlets across the country were trying to understand what the video showed. But the truth was, the public had only seen a fraction of the frame. The real version, the one in the evidence room, was longer, clearer, more damning. A detail no civilian viewer could have known was that the clip captured two individuals, not one. And the second figure, partially hidden behind a reflection in the frame, had been a mystery until analysts enhanced the light consistency. The silhouette matched an inmate with documented connections to Diddy earlier in the trial, an inmate whose testimony had been dismissed due to lack of physical proof. Suddenly, that testimony was proof. And if the testimony was real, Then the motive prosecutors argued months ago regained full force. By 6 at Jerusalem a.m., SDNY wasn't reacting anymore. They were mobilizing. A legal crisis had turned into a federal emergency. Phones rang nonstop. Lawyers called their assistants in early. Security protocols were raised. Background checks were rerun. Judge Subramanian's clerk printed the enhanced transcript, his hands shaking slightly as he carried it across the hall. Inside the judge's chamber, the atmosphere was heavy, colder than usual, like the building itself sensed the weight of what was coming. The judge read the transcript once, then placed it face down on his desk and closed his eyes. The kind of pause that only comes when a decision is obvious, unavoidable, and irreversible. Meanwhile, the viral clip continued spreading online like wildfire. Influencers dissected every second of it. Commentators demanded accountability. Hashtags surged, but none of them knew what the government knew. None of them saw the second angle. None of them heard the enhanced audio. None of them understood the legal implications tied to the timestamp. The public thought they were reacting to a controversy. SDNY knew they were reacting to a conviction. Inside the courthouse, prosecutors met privately in a secure briefing room. One of them slammed a folder shut and said, "There's no path to leniency left. He's done." Another nodded, staring at the floor. "We can't ignore this. If we ignore this, the entire system looks compromised." That was the part that frightened everyone the most. When an inmate already convicted in a high-profile federal case appears in a leaked piece of sealed evidence contradicting his own sworn statements, the justice system has only one way to protect its reputation: maximum punishment, no compromise, no reconsideration, no mercy. Across the hall, a marshal entered the room holding a tablet. "He's 10 minutes out," he said quietly. The prosecutors exchanged looks. Everyone knew what that meant. 10 minutes until Diddy stepped off the van. 10 minutes until he was escorted through the concrete hallways of SDNY. 10 minutes until he faced evidence he couldn't talk his way out of. 10 minutes until a judge decided his entire future in one hearing. And inmates at Fort Dix had whispered about the energy shift all night, but even they didn't understand the full gravity of what was coming. Because what the video exposed wasn't just a contradiction. It was a pattern. A pattern federal law treats as a threat, not a mistake. A pattern the judge had warned about during sentencing. A pattern of defiance, escalation, and deception. And federal judges do not tolerate patterns, not when they risk the integrity of the correctional system. By 6:41 a.m., the courthouse was sealed. Extra marshals lined the corridors. Elevators were locked. A private courtroom was prepared with reinforced security. The lighting was dim, the air cold. A single file sat on the judge's bench, containing the enhanced video, the transcript, the timestamp, and the emergency recommendation from the U.S. Attorney's Office. And as the transport van rolled to a stop outside SDNY, its engine rumbling in the morning cold, one reality became unavoidable. What Diddy was about to face inside that building was not a hearing, not a review, not a warning. It was the consequence of a video the world was never meant to see, and the evidence that would push a federal judge to the harshest sentence he had ever delivered. The transport van door opened at 6:52 a.m., and the cold Manhattan air rushed in, cutting straight through the silence inside the vehicle. Diddy didn't move at first. He sat there, chains tight around his wrists and ankles, staring at nothing, the weight of the night pressing on him like a concrete slab. The marshal closest to him gave a short nod. "It's time." Those two words echoed louder than the metal of the van doors. He stepped out slowly, each chain clinking against the reinforced floor, each step pulling him closer to the one room where nothing could save him. The courthouse steps were empty, sealed off before sunrise. No cameras, no reporters, no crowds. Just 4 marshals, 2 supervisors, and a federal silence that felt heavier than any prison block. As he walked toward the entrance, the distant hum of the waking city felt strange, disconnected, like the world outside had no idea it was about to lose a man who once controlled entire industries. Inside, the corridors were darker than usual, not because of the lights, but because of the tension. Every marshal he passed looked straight ahead, never meeting his eyes. Every door was locked, every hallway guarded, Diddy could feel it. This wasn't a routine hearing. This wasn't discipline. This wasn't an extension or a warning. This was something final. The door to the private courtroom opened at 7:03 a.m. The room was cold, the air sterile, the lights dimmed. The judge's bench towered over the empty space like a monument of inevitability. There were no spectators, no press benches, no murmuring lawyers. Only the judge, the prosecutor, a court clerk, and the marshals who positioned themselves behind Diddy as he was guided into the defendant's chair. He didn't sit back. He didn't lean forward. He simply lowered himself carefully, his breathing shallow, his gaze locked on the floor. For years he had walked into rooms with confidence, with power, with control. This morning he walked into one with nothing. Judge Arun Subramanian entered silently, his robe trailing behind him, his expression set in a way no defense team could ever soften or sway. He took his seat, adjusted his glasses, and rested his hands on the file in front of him, the file containing the enhanced viral video, the transcript, the forensic report, and the emergency recommendation from the U.S. Attorney's Office. The silence stretched. No one moved. Finally, the judge exhaled. "Mr. Combs," he began, his voice deep, steady, and heavier than the walls around him. "The court has reviewed the evidence." Diddy didn't look up. The judge continued, flipping to the second page of the transcript. "The video that surfaced last night is authentic. It contains information directly contradicting your prior statements during sentencing." He paused not for drama, but because the gravity of the moment demanded it. "The court takes this extremely seriously." The prosecutor rose. "Your Honor, this is not a small violation. This is not a misunderstanding. This video demonstrates willful behavior, deception, and an escalation that threatens the integrity of the federal system." The judge nodded once, a slow, final nod. "The pattern is undeniable." Diddy's fingers tightened around the chains. His shoulders tensed. He still didn't look up. Inside him, something trembled. Not fear of prison, not fear of consequences, but fear of a truth he could no longer outrun. The prosecutor continued, "Your Honor, the government recommends immediate reclassification under high-risk protocol and a full sentencing upgrade." The judge lifted the file and closed it softly. That soft sound felt like a door being sealed shut. When he spoke next, his voice was colder, firmer, and devastatingly final. "Mr. Combs, based on your repeated violations, your escalating behavior, and the contents of the newly surfaced evidence, the court finds you no longer suitable for standard federal sentencing." The marshal subtly shifted. The prosecutor lowered his head. Diddy finally lifted his eyes, just barely as if trying to understand the moment before it crushed him. Then the judge delivered the words that would end everything. "Effective immediately, you are sentenced to life imprisonment." The room froze. "Without the possibility of parole." Time didn't slow down, it stopped. The silence didn't return, it shattered. Diddy blinked once, twice, his breath catching in his throat. His face didn't show anger. It didn't show confusion. It didn't show regret. It showed nothing. An emptiness so stark it made the marshals tighten their grip on his arms. The judge wasn't finished. "You will be transferred under maximum security protocol. You will not be granted appeal. Your conduct has demonstrated a fundamental inability to comply with federal law." His voice hardened even further. "This court has no choice but to ensure you no longer pose a threat to the system or to yourself." Diddy inhaled sharply, his knees softening. One marshal stepped closer, bracing him. The court clerk looked away. Even the prosecutor, who had pushed relentlessly for accountability, seemed momentarily stunned by the finality of the decision. The judge stood. The hearing was over. But for Diddy, the moment was just beginning. Two marshals moved in immediately, securing him at the wrists and elbows. He didn't resist. He didn't speak. He didn't look angry. He looked hollow. Like a man who had finally realized there was no more fight left to give. They guided him toward the door, the chains dragging lightly across the floor with each step. That sound metal against polished courtroom tile echoed louder than any voice in the room. Louder than the judge's sentence. Louder than the prosecutor's arguments. Louder than the viral video that started it all. When the door closed behind him, the hallway felt colder than before. Marshals lined the corridor as he was escorted toward the transport elevator, their faces expressionless, their posture rigid. He passed them slowly, each clink of the chains marking the end of something, his freedom, his influence, his future. The elevator doors opened. He stepped inside. The marshal pressed the button for the basement transfer point. As the doors slid shut, Diddy looked up one last time, not at the marshal, not at the camera, but at the ceiling, as if trying to hold on to one final moment of air before being swallowed by the system forever. Downstairs, the blacked-out transport van was already waiting. Reinforced locks, armored windows, double escort vehicles in front and behind. A full maximum security transfer team stood ready, their expressions grim. They had transported dangerous inmates before, but none with the global weight of Sean Combs. The sun still hadn't fully risen as he stepped out of the courthouse doors. Gray light washed over the pavement. A cold wind pushed against his orange jumpsuit. The chains around his wrists rattled softly as he climbed into the van, helped by the marshals who held him firmly, professionally, without a word. The door slammed shut. That was it. The van pulled away, rolling into the morning fog. New Yorkers walked the streets unaware of what had just happened inside SDNY. Cars honked, coffee shops opened. The city continued, as it always does. But for Diddy, the world he once ruled had ended in a single morning, destroyed by the video the internet wasn't supposed to see. And somewhere deep inside the federal system, investigators were still asking the same question. If that video leaked, what else is out there? And finally, if you're still here watching, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell, because this story is only getting darker, and we'll be bringing you every update the moment it breaks.